Hello, and welcome to the Open Space and Ecology meeting here on March 23rd, 2022. This meeting is compliant with the Ralph M. Brown Act as amended by California Assembly Bill number 361, effective September 16th, 2021, providing for a public health emergency exception to the standard teleconferencing rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide a safe environment for the public, staff, and committee members while allowing for public participation. The public may address the committee using exclusively remote public comment options. The committee may take action on any item listed in the agenda. Members of the public may view the Open Space and Ecology Committee meeting by logging into the Zoom meeting listed below. Open Space and Ecology Committee meetings can also be viewed live and or on demand via the city's YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/Brisbane CA, or on Comcast channel 27. Archived videos can be replayed on the city's website, brisbaneca.org/meetings. To address the committee, the Open Space and Ecology Committee OSEC meeting will be an exclusively virtual meeting. The OSEC agenda materials may be viewed online at www.brisbaneca.org at least 24 hours prior to a special meeting and at least 72 hours prior to a regular meeting. Remote public comments. Meeting participants are encouraged to submit public comments in writing in advance of the meeting. Aside from commenting while in the Zoom meeting, the following email and text line will also be monitored during the meeting, and public comments will be received and read into the record during oral communications or during an item. Email Etherton, aetherton@brisbaneca.org, text 415-203-8897. To join the meeting, www.brisbane.org/zoom-OSEC. Meeting ID 976-4295-0160, passcode 544511. The call-in number is 669-900-9128. If you need special assistance to participate in this meeting, please call Adrian Etherton at aetherton@brisbaneca.org or 415-508-2118. Notification in advance of the meeting will enable the city to make reasonable arrangements to ensure accessibility to this meeting. All right, like to call this meeting to order. Everybody's muted.
Here.
Yeah. I'd like to call, let's see, who's Michelle Salmon.
Here.
Mary Roger.
Here.
Aaron Becker.
Becker, here.
Glenn Feldman.
Here.
Shauna Calmes. Yes, we're all here.
And I will note for the record that Jason Noonan let me know last week that he would not be able to attend this evening, and are expecting Chair Evil to join us as soon as she can.
She just texted that she will be joining us very shortly.
Excellent.
Okay. Like to adopt the agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second. So we need to vote now.
Yes. Aaron Becker.
Aye.
Glenn
Yay.
Feldman.
Aye.
Mary Rogers.
Aye.
Michelle Salmon,
Aye.
Donna Calmes, aye. Are there any announcements?
I'd just like to remind everybody that we're having that, if anybody's watching, that we're having the Open Space and Ecology Committee, Brisbane Rec Department, San Bruno Mountain Watch, City of Brisbane, Habitat Restoration Day on April 23rd. Please mark it on your calendar and watch for announcements. It's going to be really fun. That's it.
Oral communications?
I have received none, and I do not see any members of the public present.
So we vote to approve the meeting from February 2022, the minutes. Are there any amendments or alterations, or shall we just vote to approve them as is?
I'll move to.
I don't
approve.
have any change read through them. I'm good with them. I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 26th or February 23rd, excuse me.
I'll second.
Karen Becker? Approve. Donna Calmes, approve. Glenn Feldman,
Yes.
Mary Rogers,
Yes,
Michelle Salmon.
Yes.
Yep. February 22nd meetings minutes were approved. All right, we will move on to new business.
I want an introduction. At the last meeting, there had been some question about the OSAC budget. So we asked Carolina and possibly Stuart, Carolina Yuen being our finance director, and Stuart in the past was our finance director and staff OSAC, to talk to us a little bit about the budget that is called the OSAC. That, handing it off, Carolina.
Great. Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the budget process and how much the budget is available or was given to the open space department for 2022. So let's start with the process. So the city goes through a 2-year budget planning process. So we'll budget for 1-year intervals, but for 2 years. So the budget for 2022 was actually approved and adopted back in June of 2020. So there is input from management council directives and what staff puts together, and also with input of what the committee has interest in doing. And so those ideas are explored as far as putting costs together and in building the budget of what the programs would cost. And then those are put into a request that the staff comes together and each department submits their budget request. And then it's forwarded to the manager or the city manager rather, who oversees all of the budgets and helps decide which programs and which line items are going to go to the city council for approval. So it's taken to the city council when the public has opportunity to comment on those budget requests. Each department presents their request to the council, and then the council has to weigh the requests of each department and what they deem is important for the whole city, as considering, regulatory requirements, strategic goals, what we can afford, lots of things that they have to consider as they're making their decision on what they want to approve. And so as they direct and approve, then the departments will go back and then implement those budgets. So for the fiscal year of 21-22, so we're talking July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 22 is the fiscal year that we're in right now. And I think the next slide, Adrian, is we're going to go over the last column on the right, but overall, each department has different sections that they have, but primarily for the open space department and open space and ecology department, there's given an allotment for office expense, professional services if it's needed for a project, special department expenses where the bulk of your programs are in, the different projects that you have. Training is available for committee members and staff related to this. And then there's a component under utilities that's related to the ecology section of this department. And so for fiscal year 21-22, there was a total budget of $32,600. And you'll see the bulk again is in those programs. So for this current fiscal year, what was determined the programs to be was vegetation management, the miscellaneous OSEC projects, then there's the operation of the electric charging stations, and the volunteer planting day. So just those programs total $23,600. And again, you see the travel and training available to you, and then the utilities. So that's the budget that is available to the open space division. Any questions on some of what those programs are may need to go to Adrian and Karen, but if any other questions you have on the budget.
I do have a question. Utilities for the EV charger energy usage. Is that what we are charged for electricity for the EV chargers?
It is.
And that comes to our group?
It is offset by revenues, which don't show in this same budget, but yes, that is.
Well, when we want to see a P&L that shows the revenues from that, instead of having that just taken out of our, I'd like to see a full picture.
Mm-hmm.
And also, kind of maybe more detailed. This looks like this was what the budget was, but it'd be curious to see what the actuals were for fiscal year 2021, and then where we're at for fiscal year 2022.
So Adrian, would you want us to come back with that information, or do you want to have it available tonight?
Well, I feel like when we talked with you guys, Stuart, you were talking about kind of the policy level of the committee, and not that the role isn't really to manage the budget, but to think about what programs you want and how they can be funded.
I think that's true. I mean, the goal of the committees are to come up with the policies and, work with staff to develop programs that can be implemented. And I guess the question is, if these are not the programs that the committee is interested in, or if these are not or if there's additional policies or programs that the committee is interested in, that's probably a better conversation than to say, if there's, if these numbers are, I think the idea is if you're looking for additional programs, that's a better conversation than to be talking about what the actual dollar amounts are at this moment in time, because there might be additional programs that you want to do. And if staff comes back and says, we do have savings to be able to do that, they would. If there's additional needs from the city council, that would be something that would be brought forward to the city council. The implementation of the budget is really something that takes place at the staff level, but the policy conversations, especially like what you're going to have tonight with the divestment, or what we've done in the past, talking about, what the size of the vegetation management program should be, And we've done, the other one, I remember when I was staffing the committee, it wasn't in our budget, but we came up with the ability to do the outreach where we did the movie for the garbage dump. We did a couple of other programs that were outreach programs. And what we did at that point is say that the Open Space and Ecology Committee wanted to do those programs. And I would then write a staff report to the city council asking for the additional funds for that. But I think that to me is is a better conversation than trying to get into the details of what was spent, what wasn't spent. Does that make sense to the committee?
Glenn has a question.
Glenn, you're on mute. You need to
Yes, I
unmute.
know. It is helpful, Stuart. Thanks. I understand better what the process is. I am still though confused and want to follow up Michelle's question. The EV charger, I don't understand why that's in our budget.
Well,
does that-
okay. I apologize, Glenn. I apologize for cutting you off.
No, it's fine.
Okay. So this budget isn't just for open space and ecology. This budget is seen from the city's perspective as everything that's related to the sustainability initiatives of the city. So the EV charger is a sustainability initiative that the city put forward for climate action plan. So that's why the expense shows up here. And that's why I say that I think from a committee perspective and from a policy perspective, really focusing on the programs that you want to do becomes important, because if there's programs that we're not doing as a city that the committee thinks is important and want to bring forward, don't be constricted by the dollar amounts that you see on your budget and saying, oh, if we want to do something different, do we have to cut down on our vegetation management to do something? The real question is if if you feel that $20,000 is the right amount, or the program that you're looking at for vegetation management is the right type of vegetation management we're doing, and staff come back and says that that program costs $20,000, costs $15,000, costs $30,000, that's what will be brought forward to the city manager to balance out against all the other needs and brought forward to the city council. But if at the same time you're saying that we should be doing, not only should we be doing that level of vegetation management, but we need to be doing more outreach. That's really the council policy conversation to have. That's not really the conversation for you to try and balance out your numbers.
Okay. We've just never really talked about budget, at least not to my recollection while I've been on this committee. So it's helpful to have kind of a sketch of how the process works.
Right.
And
I know when I was a staff for the committee, I was really focusing more on that. What are the programs that you're trying to accomplish? And how do I as staff help you accomplish those programs and bring forward to the city manager and the city council the necessary financial resources that you need, or the staffing resources. Because if you're, Glenn and Michelle, you've been on long enough to know that originally we staffed this committee with an intern, and the committee says that we need additional support for that. And we brought in a part-time person who had a more professional background, and then he said we need more support than that, and we brought in Adrian to support it. So it's really the committee talking about what they need to happen that drives the budget numbers, as opposed to the budget numbers driving what you think needs to happen.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And what you're asking about the EV charger, I mean, this budget is out of the general fund, as you see. I mean, that could have a place in, another facility budget. It just started here because it was something that Adrian and I started and paid the invoices on. And, I supervise people and other budgets, manage other budgets. So yeah, it was just a place to put it. It made sense at the time because of the staff involved that managed this budget.
Mary had a question.
Yeah, someone may have already commented on Michelle's question about actuals. I dropped off, I had to log back in. But I mean, to me, it's helpful to see what's been spent. And the reason I say that is because more often than not, if we're working on a small project, we always ask, is there money in the budget? And if we know that, then we won't be asking that question every single time. So, I mean, I would imagine you have that detail probably fairly easily, right? To be able to show that. And I'm not asking to see it monthly. I would like to see it on a quarterly basis so we know where we stand. Because come end of the year, when we are doing the day in the park, there's always a question, well, do we have any money to buy any, giveaways? And we never know what that number is. So we don't have it handy. So I think that's where I was coming from as far as budgets versus actuals. I think it would help the team just understand it better and where we stand. Anyway, thank you. That's my thought.
So if I can respond to that, I've been kind of working with the committee on day in the park. And when that question is asked, that's where I go to find out and get that information. And I don't know that we've ever had a situation where we've said we don't have any money to do anything. We've done most of the things that I think we've wanted to for day in the park. So
I think the point is, if we know what we have, right, then we won't ask the question. So,
and that's what you have staff for, in my opinion, is to go find out the answer to that and get you that answer. Which is what I think the committee should. I think we should know what's in the budget and what's been spent against it. I mean, that's my opinion. That's what I would like to see. I don't know if everyone else feels the same.
Well, I think you missed what Stuart was saying about that. You dropped off.
Right. I mean, I think the bigger question is, if you have a desire to do stuff for the day in the park, and
that's just an example.
No, I get it. And you don't have it, and there isn't enough money in the budget. It doesn't mean necessarily that the idea isn't a good one and that it shouldn't be funded from other sources that the city have. And I mean, for me, this is when I responded to the question from Michelle, is I really think that the conversation is more, what do you want to do? And let your staff go out and figure out how that can get done.
That's kind of our role. And what I wanted to say background wise is that when I started staffing the committee, I inherited a budget structure that's pretty similar to this. There was the vegetation management has possibly varied between $15,000 to $30,000. Probably when the economy got strong, we were able to get a little more money. We needed to do some big tree removals too. Now we've done a lot of those tree removals. We're around 20,000 in a few years, but kind of the structure of it was inherited, and so there's, we've massaged it over the years, but it wasn't just kind of come up with in a vacuum. So I think I'm not sure when Stuart staffed the committee, if he found other money for which things, but he added the OSAC special projects line of $1,000. It might have started back with the do-it-yourself toolkit and day in the park, and we needed a fund, and we asked for that, and we were able to get it. And then the volunteer planting day is about 3 years old. We wanted to plant the Mission Blue natives, and we had a couple of at least planting days, but it doesn't mean that it can't move, but just to sort of understand what it is. And staff has always gotten the direction that if you have money in the budget, you don't need to necessarily try to just find ways to spend all of it. Otherwise, you won't get the money next year. That's not the philosophy of the city. So this is kind of like the bucket. And if something is a little bit more, we know that we can ask or look for money to do things that are within maybe 10% of that without maybe a difficulty, especially on the smaller line items. So, that understanding comes with a lot of doing budgets, being responsible for budgets, having to meet, budgets within a certain degree over years. So it's a little bit, I see that as our role. And And we work with you guys about what projects you want to do and how it's possible to fund them. Do we need to go look for grants? Do we need to ask council for money? What is the financial situation of the city and the likelihood that we come in with, oh, we need $50,000 to do, to fund something big. So we have all of that. That's what our experience brings to staffing the committee. I feel like.
So I'm assuming that the numbers that are shown here, those estimates were based off actuals, right? Your trend.
It could have been a variety, whether some were trend or some were based off of a specific project that was presented and what those costs would be for that particular project or program.
Okay.
And it's also more based off of what you think you need for next year. So
Right.
one of the challenges, and I've seen it in other cities that I've worked in, is if you base it off of what you spent last year, that doesn't necessarily mean what you want to spend next year. And a lot of finance directors in other cities will say that last year you only spent $1,800 for your volunteer planting supplies, and therefore you only get $1,800 next year. Whereas what we look at is saying, these are the programs you want to do. Your staff is estimating that's going to cost us $2,000 or $2,300 or whatever that number is for the next year. And we try and budget for that number. If it doesn't come in at the 2,000 and comes in at 1,800, that's great. If it comes in at 2,200 one year, that's okay too, because we understand that trying to estimate something 2 years ahead of time is not the easiest of things to do. And that's where yes, obviously we do have the actuals, we can show you the actuals from 2021, but from my perspective is that doesn't really necessarily mean what you should be asking for in 22, 23. It's really what programs are you looking for, and are these programs meeting your needs? Is your volunteer planting doing everything you want to do, or do you want to do more volunteer planting? And if so, let staff figure out what that would cost and present it as part of the budget. And then as part of the budget process, if the Open Space and Ecology Committee wants to send a representative to the council to say, here's the reasons why we're asking for these programs, that would be a great conversation to have with the city council at that time, or with your subcommittee that you work with, so they can be prepared for it. But the dollar amount, for me, the dollar amount is, let staff work on that aspect. You as the committee works on what do you want to get accomplished for the year?
So what our attempt is that we provide that information with staff. We work with staff so they have the actuals available, but we didn't want to derail your conversations and your thought process or sidetrack you of any programs that you want to do or feel that you're handcuffed.
I'm glad you asked that, Carolina, because one of the reasons that this came up in detail was at a recent meeting. We were kind of asked to choose between whether we wanted to spend money to be part of the Cal IPSA, or if we wanted to spend money to send people to a thing. And it was just in the hundreds. It wasn't even more than $600 one way or the other. And we were I definitely had the impression, I don't want to speak for my committee members, that we were, having to make a choice between $250 here or $250 there. And that's where the whole discussion of budget came up. And Stuart, I think you're a brilliant financial manager. I've always admired you and how the amazing job you do. And so understanding what you're saying, I get it. And, I'm used to looking at a lot of budget stuff because I have to do it for the boards that I'm on. And so I would like us to budget for fiscal year 23, a whole lot more money for vegetation management, and in particular, getting a handle on the amount of ivy that's in our public canyons that's destroying them. And it's stuff that some of it is stuff that volunteers cannot do. And you look at Castaños Canyon, where we did use monies that were available, I guess. I don't understand how they were available because the budget picture is a little bit different than what I'm seeing right now. But we used that extra funding to be able to clear a lot of ivy out of both Castaños Canyon and Firth Canyon. And the thing is those are things that need to continue to be maintained. We had some very intense habitat days removing ivy from Lower Sierra Point Road Canyon, Upper Sierra Point Road Canyon, or Upper Sierra Point Canyon, and also the canyon that's above Salmon Lane. A lot of that has grown back in spades, especially Lower Sierra Point Road Canyon and the ivy that's encroaching on the mountain from the where Trinity, Kings, and Salmon Lane all meet. And so I would be nice to know that we had a budget and that we could actually budget to get that work done in 2023 before it gets so out of hand that it's not affordable to do, or that we don't have habitat restoration people that are able to do it. And so I would like to agendize that for our next meeting, that we put a proposal in this coming year's budget that we bite the bullet and do that work before it's too late. And there's a lot of projects like that, money for enhancing the frog habitat at Cypress and things like that. And so we didn't know if, we had no idea the scale or scope or level of whatever constraint or lack of constraint we have in regard to budget, which was why this conversation came up. And along with that, other people have mentioned this to me, and I've been very curious for a long time. Originally, the city was supposed to set aside X amount of money to buy acres in the priority preservation area. And I haven't seen any of that for several years. And I would like to see that. And I would like to know, do we have a budget? Do we need to go out and get funding? Can we make an offer on more areas? What can we do to protect that better? Those types of things. I understand the city's under some financial fiscal responsibility issues right now with the purchase of the Bank of America property and the overruns on the library, but I'd still kind of like to know, do we take the time to do this, or is it a hopeless venture that we're not going to get any?
So if I
So
can answer,
that's kind of where I'm at. That was
Yeah,
a lot. Sorry.
if I can answer the question on the acres issue. So you're right, Michelle. When I first got here in 2001, there was an allocation for setting aside money to purchase acres. We ended up purchasing more acres at the time than we had money available for in the general fund, paid for it, and then was getting paid back by that money. And sometime when Clark was on the city council, we were still, we did not have additional money for the acres because we were still paying back the general fund. And Clark at that time said, how about if we just wipe out the debt that the acres have, and just say that if there's acres to be purchased, we would just take the money out of the general fund at the time that we had that available. So we do send out letters to the property owners, and we have asked them. And this past year, we got one person who donated their acre. And I was in conversation with two other people. One of them was not in the priority area for us. The other one, when I told them what the value of the acre was, has not returned my phone call. When I told them the value that was placed on the acre that we got donated, because we got it appraised, because obviously the person who made the donation wanted to take the biggest tax credit they could. So they went out and got an appraiser for it. And I don't remember, but I think it was like $60,000 or $70,000 was what the appraisal was for. And I let the person who wanted to sell us the acre, but I think they were thinking it was going to be in the $200,000 to $300,000 for their parcel.
Well, it depends whether it's market rate or donation rate.
Well, but the appraisal was at market rate for an acre for that piece of property in that area.
Okay, and we have a couple of acres that we want to put into the priority preservation area, and we're just waiting for council time. The documents have been prepped since November.
Right. So if there is acres that we can purchase, I mean, this city council and previous city councils have committed to saying that, we will do the best we can to purchase acres when they become available to us. We'll look for grants when they become available to us to do it. The challenge with putting aside a certain amount of money, what we found was that we ran out of money before we ran out of acres to buy. We're now at the point, because we bought so many acres previously, we now have people who are not willing sellers at the moment.
Right, the
But I think if we can
circumstances
get,
have changed.
right, but if we can
Yeah.
get more willing sellers, I think going to council and saying, these are our priority acres for us. And, you know, I have every belief that this city council would say, you know, if it cost $160,000 for a couple of parcels, and we were able to go out and get grants to pay for half of it, which is what we did when Fred was here, the city council would say for $80,000 or $100,000, that's a high priority for us.
Yeah,
Whereas
but
if you-
Stuart, the reality is we'll probably be paying more like $200,000 for an acre now, when a 5,000 square foot lot with a tear down just went for $1 million this week. You know,
I know, it's the one next
and
door to me.
so we need to get on it and protect what we can. And then the issue about the vegetation management in the canyons as well as in the habitat are issues that we need to push forward on those things. So it's the very thing that defines Brisbane is our open space and how incredible that is.
Absolutely, because I remember one year when I was staffing the committee, we put the vegetation management up more because we did exactly what you were talking about with the ivy.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think when the committee requests those kinds of things, I'm sorry, Karen, you're gonna cut me off.
I'm not going to cut you off. I want Karen to say something because it was during my tenure and I remember it very well. One thing about purchasing open space is that I did circulate a resolution around to you guys that said the council was not funding anymore, but was willing to buy acres that became available within, I don't know if it's described qualitatively a price. I circulated that to you guys. You had
Yeah.
it.
I was at the council meeting that decision was made, but not all of the committee was aware of the history and everything that happened there and where we're at now. 'Cause
Okay, I thought you were
we haven't
asking because you
purchased
didn't
any
remember.
acres since we made that decision.
But I thought that resolution was dated in 2011, so I don't know.
That's 10 years ago. And have we purchased any acres in the last 10 years?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
During Fred's tenure, yes. But on the second thing, on the ivy and the acres, you brought that forward probably a couple of cycles ago, maybe 4 years ago, either 4 or 6. And we had on point, maybe they were shelter belt at the time, estimate for us, and they said $66,000 to do First Canyon was the subject area. And then, you know, you came to the council meeting and you made a strong appeal and they decided to fund that, even though it was triple what our vegetation management budget is annually. And they were able to do First Canyon for maybe half of the cost. So then they went over and like, well, we
Did the
got the
others.
money, let's do Costaños Canyon. And then they did some of the Upper Sierra Point Canyon too. Some of the
Lower.
idea, the verbal agreement on Firth was that we would hold volunteer days and try to maintain what had been pulled out. But if it grows back that quickly,
Perth has
A
not
little-
grown back, but the other, because they did a very thorough job.
well,
But-
and they've actually gone back and sprayed there.
Yeah. But the other canyons and the other areas where we did it on volunteer days, those need help and it's ongoing. I mean, we don't,
I think I'm just saying might be a hard sell to council to say we need $40,000 to $60,000 every 4 years. Maybe just keep coming back. Like maybe we should be talking more about, you know, whether it needs some.
maybe if we did $5,000 a year, we wouldn't have to ask for $40,000 in 4 years. You know, a little bit of maintenance goes a long ways.
Okay, so I guess then
So let's make a
on
plan.
this discussion, we would like, let's discuss it under chair and committee member matters about whether
Okay.
agendize or.
Erin?
Any other questions or, sorry. So Adrian, you tell me.
Erin has her hand up.
Erin, go ahead.
Sorry.
Had it
I'm
up
not
for a
gonna-
while. Is it asleep?
No, I'm on a new device and I'm not used to the mute button. My question, Carolina said that our current budget was approved in July of 2020,
June
And-
2020, yeah.
June 2020. And June is coming up. So how long do we have to figure out what we want to do in order to get something approved in what I imagine is June of 2022
Yeah.
for the following fiscal year?
Right. So the budget season is pretty much open now. And so we will be having our meetings with the city manager sometime in May. And so this would have to be presented to Karen and Adrian in order to include in what they're presenting to our city manager first.
Do we have time to do that if the April meeting is April 26th, or is there precedence for having a interim meeting?
I think that-
Adrian, Karen?
I don't know that we know the schedule that our material is due to, you know, our department head to bring to the city manager, so. Haven't seen the detailed schedule. Well, Stuart's gonna.
Yes.
I mean, I think if you have a meeting in April, we could, you know, and you're talking about adding 2 or 3 different line items for different projects or programs, I think that would be fine to add. You know, that would be something that we can talk about with the city manager. And, you know, and this is the other aspect of it. You know, if there's something that comes up, I mean, we do a 2-year budget. If there's programs or projects that come up within the 2 years that you didn't think about 2 years ago, it doesn't mean you can't present it to council for a budget amendment. And that's where, you know, and that's really where I think, you know, as a committee, that's your job. Your job is to formulate policy, to come up with, you know, with these ideas and present them to your, you know, if they're within your work plan, within what you talk to your council subcommittee with, and that the council says, yeah, you know, we would like to have you go forward with these kinds of projects and these kinds of programs. Then, you know, if you come up with it not in April of 2022, but you come up with it in April of 2023, which is a non-budget year for us, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be asking for, you know, you shouldn't be presenting it to council and seeing if there is an ability to do that prior to the next budget year. I wouldn't, the goal of the committee is to set up policies and programs and let staff run them and to figure out, you know, and to help you be able to achieve those. So, I mean, I wouldn't feel constrained to say that, oh my God, I missed this 2-year window. So therefore I can't do anything for 2 years.
But it would be better if we got it on the budget, because then it would happen.
You would be sure of it happening. But you know,
Yes.
the other thing, of course, is that during the budget season, you're competing with everybody else who's asking for things.
That's okay. I think we should make it a priority. I personally really appreciate you coming and explaining this, Carolina and Stuart. It really helps to give us a better picture, a full picture of the resources that we have and don't have available to us. So I think it's really important. Thank you. It's very appreciated.
Thanks for having us. Okay, with that, Adrian and Karen.
I did just note that Barbara's hand is up, so I don't know if that was
Okay.
another question on this before you jump off.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, Carolina and Stuart, you know, it's always appreciated. Really, I'm not seeing anything here that was sort of scary or unexpected. It looks pretty much like I guess I thought I would have thought it might have looked, but it's just really nice to have this question finally answered and have the transparency. And I just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time.
Anytime, you know that. At least for me, I can't speak for Carolina.
We are willing to help when we can.
All right, so are we ready to move on?
And Stuart, you can stay for the whole meeting for old time's sakes if you have
Well,
nothing else to do.
I was told that I was invited for the next item because this started under my time with the committee.
Okay, good.
Indeed. So we can,
Thank you. Sorry.
thanks, Carolina.
Thank you.
So we can move to that, and I would just note, hopefully you all saw in the packet of additional materials that Glenn requested this item be on the agenda. So I wanted to give her an opportunity to perhaps make a bit of an introduction before we dive into discussion.
Okay. So, sure. So this item is about the fact that the city's retirement money is collected and then invested by the California State Personnel System, which is one of the biggest. It's either the first or the second biggest retirement fund in the country. Some of that fund, which now amounts to, well, the California State Personnel System retirement system and the teachers retirement system together have $500 billion under management. So this is really, it's a lot of money. And what it does, what these funds do or don't do is, registers on Wall Street and with other investors. So right now the funds, and CalPERS is the one that's most relevant to Brisbane because that's where the city employees' retirement money is invested. So I'll focus on that. Right now, CalPERS, despite many years of effort by Fossil Free California, which is an organization that I've been working with for a really long time, 6 or 7 years, we have been lobbying the fund to get itself out of fossil fuels. And we have been steadfastly resisted. The fund claims, the fund's investment managers claim that because the fund holds stock in fossil fuel companies, including ExxonMobil and Chevron and Shell, that they can go to annual meetings and they can say, please get ready to get rid of fossil fuel because we're burning up the planet. And the fund keeps saying, well, we can continue to say this and they'll listen to us. Well, they're not listening. The big fossil fuel companies continue to invest in fossil fuels. They're planning on us using them for a really long time to come. And so our argument has been they need to sell their stock. And we haven't been able to persuade the funds directly. So now we are working through the state legislature. And we found a legislator, Lorena Gonzalez from Southern California, to carry a bill for us, and that is SB 1173. So Fossil Free California, an organization with which I'm connected, is co-sponsoring that, and it will require the funds to divest. Brisbane, some years ago, the council wrote a letter to the funds themselves, asking them to divest. And what I wanted us to consider was to ask the council to endorse SB 1173, which is right now in committee at the state legislature. It's before it's either 2 or 3 committees. It's before the Labor, Pension, and Retirement Committee. It's before the Judiciary Committee, and it may be before one other committee. We would like to, if the committee agrees to ask the council for this, we would like this to happen quickly while the bill is still in committee. It's going to be a tough fight, even with a state legislature that is already Democratic. As I'm sure everybody is aware, the fossil fuel industry has a pretty strong presence in California. It employs people, especially in Southern California. I was at a hearing in Sacramento, this was last week, before the Labor, Pensions, and Retirement Committee in the state Senate. And there were a couple of legislators who spoke out pretty strongly against us. And the funds, of course, are very much opposed to this. They do not like to be micromanaged in this fashion. And they're continuing to make the argument that, well, as stockholders, we can speak up and ask ExxonMobil and Chevron and the rest to reduce their fossil fuel activities. We think that's ridiculous. I mean, for some companies, especially those that consume fossil fuels, engagement of the sort that the funds favor might work, because companies that use fossil fuels can say, oh, okay, our stockholders are really worried about this. We can go out and, figure out ways to power our operations with renewables. But our argument is that for companies whose core business is fossil fuels, and this would be the Exxons and the Chevrons and so forth, engagement is not really going to do very much. These companies are going to have to die pretty much, in our opinion. And that's how capitalism works, right? And so we want our state retirement money. And I'm a member of CalPERS also because I'm a professor, and our funds at California State University, our funds are invested through CalPERS. So I have a direct stake in this fight, but so do the employees of the city of Brisbane. So I'll stop. If people have questions, they can ask them.
I'm kind of curious Barbara, I'm sorry, you had your hand up. I just started speaking.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just pretty much put it up like just that moment. So all I want to say is I would like to read this. I cannot see any circumstances under which I would not be all in, but I want to do my due diligence. And I taught at San Francisco State University for a while, so I'm also in CalPERS, and I would very much like to see this move forward. That's all. Thanks.
So what is it you want to read, Barbara?
So what did you name the bill? SB
1173.
1173. Yes. So I would read that before I would absolutely put my pen name to paper. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to be fine.
So that would suggest we shouldn't vote on it tonight. Is that right?
I mean, yeah. Hey, do we have time?
No,
No. Okay.
not if it's already in committee.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me try and read it.
Glenn, my question was, what percentage do you know approximately of the assets are in fossil fuels?
It's actually fairly small. We believe both funds together have about $10 billion invested. So it's not a huge amount of money.
That's a huge amount of money. What percentage, though? Makes it.
It's a small percentage, right? Yeah, of course, it's a huge amount of money, you and me, but it's a pretty small percentage.
As Glenn said, there's, I know PERS has like 350 million, or $350 million, I think, under, or 350 billion under, 350 billion under investment. And STRS probably has, as Glenn said, probably another 150 billion under investment.
Yeah, so it's really not a large amount of money, but it is more a request that the funds do what they actually say they intend to do. I mean, there is a lot of prattle about sustainability at this hearing. I guess it was 2 weeks ago, but I went to this hearing. Investment managers from both funds were at this hearing, and they weren't there to talk about this bill, by the way. They were there to talk about their general investment strategy going forward. And there was a lot of prattle about sustainability and climate change and blah, blah, blah. But so why are they holding on to this money? And one of the things that's interesting about it is that until recently, and thank you, Vladimir Putin, oil was not a good investment. The fossil fuel stocks have been actually losing money for most of the last 5 years. But we think their argument, the argument of the investment managers is, well, oil stocks are traditionally volatile. What goes down will come up. And sure enough, it's up. The oil companies have made huge windfall profits just in the last couple of months. And so it looks like a better investment from a financial standpoint right now than it has looked in the recent past. But we're frying the planet. And as one of the, actually as the chair of the committee said at this hearing, he said to the fund managers, well, you know, what is climate change going to do to the rest of your portfolio? Now, climate change is clobbering tourism, it's clobbering real estate, it's clobbering agriculture and food processing, and it is going to clobber the insurance industry. So I don't know that anybody's done a study to, or even that one could be done to really get a read on how much the rest of the portfolio has lost value because of climate change, which is being fueled by the fossil fuel industry. But just thinking about it in kind of a holistic way, think, you know, should the funds really be invested in something that is so clearly bad news for the climate and for the future earnings of the fund? Mary, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. As you are an investor, do you have the ability to move your money out of that fund, or is it you just throw money in it and you have an investment manager that goes out and invests your money?
Okay,
These are defined benefit retirement funds, and the money is taken out of our paychecks, and we don't really have anything to say.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Alrighty.
about and these are huge funds. They fund pensions for, I suppose, millions of people in California.
Yeah. Okay.
And Stuart was going to say something.
Well, I was going to probably say something very similar to that, Glenn. Is that basically what it is the CalPERS is the instrument that cities and agencies all throughout the state uses in order to guarantee the ability for us to meet the obligations we have under contract with our employees. We cannot get out of CalPERS as a retirement system unless we were to say that we were going to close down, and the cost of closing it down, we're still required to pay all of our former employees their money. So it's very expensive to get out of CalPERS. And Glenn is right. I mean, the argument that's usually made by CalPERS is they don't want to be outside of any market in the investment world that may give them an extra 0.1%, 0.25%, 0.01%, because their argument is always the less money we earn in our investments, the more money taxpayers have to pay to guarantee the retirements that have been promised to employees. And I agree with you, Glenn. I mean, that's you hear this all the time. We've had this, you know, their big one that when I've been in meetings with them that they've talked about is tobacco, because I don't think they're allowed to invest in tobacco by state law. Right. And I think they would say that tobacco has cost them X percentage in return because tobacco stocks did really well for a while, and things go up, things go down, and they always talk about the long term. And I think Glenn is right. The question is, from a long term perspective, is this where PERS should be invested? And I think the other side of it that they're trying to make is the engagement side. And I know one of the in this last election for their board, they put on 2 climate people who have actually real belief in climate change. And that was there was a major fight in Exxon to try and keep keep these board members off of their board, and they lost. And part of the reason they lost is because of who holds stocks. And it was not just PERS, but it was also a major, hedge fund that was pushing for it.
Yeah, the thing is, though, so even though there was this change on Exxon's board of directors and a great deal of hay was made out of that, a pretty major academic study just came out. In fact, I think it just came out on the day that I went to this hearing in Sacramento. And the academic study concluded that despite all the the engagement and the change in Exxon's board, they're really doing very little to invest in alternative energy. And to me, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I've done some academic research on the oil industry myself, and this is what they know how to do. They have spent hundreds of billions of dollars learning how to find oil and gas, how to get it out of the ground, how to refine it. That's what they're all about. It's just has never seemed to me realistic that no matter how much engagement or how many changes on their board, they're suddenly going to turn into big players in the wind industry. They don't know how to do that. That's not, they employ a bunch of petroleum geologists and a bunch of seismic experts. They might even at some point, have their backs to the wall and say that, well, we're going to have to embrace alternative energy, but will they be successful at it? And I don't think they will.
Well, it becomes a question of who's going to die first, the planet or the oil companies.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and them, they can moan all they want about, the tobacco industry. Well, they also have to pay out a lot more in benefits because a lot less people died early because they didn't smoke anymore. So, I mean, come on. I vote yes that we ask the council to do this. So
Okay, well, we
it's a
need
no-brainer.
We need a motion, I think.
I make a motion that we ask the council to endorse SB 1173 as soon as possible.
I'll second. But Barbara, do you feel okay about it? I mean,
well, we could still take a vote because she's 1 vote out of 5 at this point. So we could still carry with a quorum.
You
Yeah, I
want to
finished
know
reading it.
what Marion, I think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm just saying I want to know. Absolutely.
Do you want
I
to know
just say
before
that
we
we-
vote or after?
Tell me what you think, Aaron. I want to know.
How do I phrase this nicely? I am very worried that this has some PR benefit, but doesn't have a lot of oomph behind it. That $10 billion, while, or, ish, is what we think CalPERS and CalSTRS might invest in the fossil fuel industries. Like Glenn just said, they're spending hundreds of billions looking for more fossil fuels. So are they going to care? Probably not. And I think the push to get investors on that board is probably, a small step and going to go somewhere. Really, I don't think there's an answer either way, and if there is, I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on that. But I feel like what's really going to help is more regulation, because that's applied across the board, and it's not just one investor at Exxon or one at or Chevron or whatever. It's regulations work across the board. They've forced the whole industry to change. It's government's role to protect things that can't protect themselves, is how I feel about, our role. And so I feel like this might make us feel better, but I don't know that it's gonna have an effect. And I feel like hopefully there's other things the city can do that have a bigger benefit.
Yeah, I mean, you're not, on some level, you're not wrong. I mean, it is a symbolic action, but I think what CalPERS does, being at one of the largest funds in the state, it does matter. It does send a message. I mean, the city of Brisbane's banned fracking in the city of Brisbane, which is not likely to ever be relevant, but we did it because we are trying very much to be on the right side of history as much as possible. So I read it. I skipped a few lines, but I'm down for signing it, even if it is. It's there's decision paralysis. It's always hardest to know what the thing you're going to need to do that's going to be the most impactful is. And is this going to be the most impactful thing? I don't know, but I think it's worth doing.
May I respond? Yes.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, Erin, that you're correct, that it is largely a symbolic act, and it's probably not going to do a whole lot by itself. But it's important to point out that part of the reason government has not been able to regulate the fossil fuel industry to the extent that it needs regulating, and in some cases hasn't been able to regulate it at all, is that the fossil fuel industry has been very good at buying regulators, buying legislators, buying governors, buying presidents, buying vice presidents. And this is part of the reason, this is another reason why we've wanted CalPERS and CalSTRS to send a message to this industry that, you know, this is why we are withdrawing our money from you. You have been lousy citizens and you have obstructed every attempt at regulation. I mean, here we are. You know, we've known that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was formed in 1990, I believe it was. So 32 years on, and we still do not have regulation of carbon dioxide emissions at the federal level. Why is that? And well, a lot of it is because of the influence of the fossil fuel industry. And you can see that right now with, you know, Build Back Better stuck in the Congress because of Joe Manchin, the biggest recipient of fossil fuel industry contributions. So it is hard to know exactly, you know, what will move things forward. I don't think anybody in fossil-free California is operating under the illusion that this is going to do the trick. But it is a statement that we don't want our retirement money invested in this industry. And because of the size of these funds, and these funds are not just the biggest in the state, they're the biggest in the country and some of the biggest in the entire world. Wall Street will notice. And, you know, what the way we've put it is we're trying to withdraw the social license that this industry has to operate. And we're trying every possible way we can to do that.
So
I have to, oops, oh,
may I, Mary? I've been trying to get in here for a while, and apparently as the host, I don't have the ability to raise my virtual hand. So, I don't disagree with anything that's been said, but I wanted to share another perspective that I had recently read about that hasn't been mentioned, and I think may be worth mentioning, which is, as has been stated, CalPERS and CalSTRS collectively are very large investors, and this may be a very small portion of their portfolio, but because they are large investors, they have some power to get things done. And I know only having 2 seats on the Exxon board is not perhaps a whole lot, but I would rather have those 2 seats and have people who are trying to get Exxon to dial back their exploration or trying to get them to do more disclosures, which are things that I understand these 2 seats have been able to do, than not have those people at the table with Exxon. Because if it's not a publicly traded company who owns these oil and gas assets, it might be I don't know, say an autocrat in a not very friendly country who owns these things. And they might not have that social pressure that investors can bring to bear. So I'm kind of looking at this like, if it's not CalSTRS or CalPERS, and trust me, I don't like that my investment, you know, retirement funds are invested in these companies either. But if it's not them who do have that social pressure, who's it going to be? And are we going to be any better off? I would argue probably not. So that's just a perspective that hadn't been stated that I thought was perhaps worth mentioning.
Mary?
Mary's had her hand up for a really long time.
oh yeah, I just, I have to agree with Erin. And I think it's more of a PR push, and I wouldn't expect to see anything change. But I think the more noise that's made is better, right? Just getting the word out there. So I'm down for approving 1173. So
And I appreciate Adrian's perspective on that,
Yeah.
but I'm still going to vote for it because I agree with Mary. Better to say it, may not make any
Yeah.
difference, but if you don't take us,
I mean, we're trying to. I mean, we no pain, no gain, right? We're trying to save the world here, and the more vocal we are, the better.
and there's ripples for every every
There
pebble you
is,
throw in the
there is,
pond
yeah.
makes a ripple.
Yeah.
So there's a
Thank you.
motion on the table. Should we call for the vote, or does anyone else need to talk about it?
I was just gonna say, in a capitalist society, one of the most important things powerful things you can do is vote with your dollar. So let's do it.
Can you remind me, Salmon, you made the motion and
My motion
Glenn
was,
seconded?
yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
And you know what the motion is. So Barbara, you want to call for the vote? Are you running the meeting now?
No, I think I should, it's so late into the meeting. I think I'd rather let Shauna go ahead and continue to chair for this meeting. I think that's unless she specifically wants to get out of it.
No, she's got us all memorized now, Shauna. Want to call for the vote?
I might even get you alphabetically this time. So I'm going to call for the vote whether we're going to ask to have the city council approve the
Endorse
Endorse.
SB 1173.
endorse SB 113.
1173.
Sorry, what was the number?
SB 1173.
SB 1173. Sorry. So Erin Becker.
Do I have to start? What happens if
Alphabet.
if I abstain? There are 6 people here and I imagine there's at least 4 yeses, so it doesn't matter. So I think I'm going to abstain.
You may.
Thank you.
Kelmy's yay. Barbara Ebel,
Yay.
Mary Rogers, Glenn Feldman,
Yes.
Mary Rogers.
Yep.
Bill Salmon,
Yes.
Harry. I guess we're on to old business.
So just one more thing on that. I think Adrian and Stuart, I think I sent you the sign-on thing that has a
Yes.
link that you click on. Okay, if you have any trouble, let me know.
So we will, to be clear, what the action actually is here is a recommendation to the city
The
council.
Right.
And what was in your packet was the, which you had provided, Glenn, was a resolution. So that
Okay.
they had asked for cities in support to pass this resolution. So staff will now take that,
To the
draft
council.
resolution forward with the committee's recommendation.
Thank you.
So
All right.
then, back to old business. We're on to old business, the work plan. There's somebody who's knows something about this?
Adrian or me or.
The floor is
Go ahead.
yours.
I was trying to catch up on the notes from the action that was just taken. So I can go ahead if you would like, or you.
Go ahead.
So we put this item on here because you requested that it be on here, and I think we wanted to discuss what should take place at this point in time, and kind of recognizing that the work plan had been discussed and had been put forward to city council. We put together the work plan as we did because we wanted to represent the kind of follow through actions from the policy actions that the committee has taken. And that is why we structured the work plan and titled the work plan as we did. And I guess our kind of perspective is that it's already been to council, and it doesn't feel like the best use of our staff time to go back. And so we want to really kind of better understand what it is that is concerning to the committee and what it is that we need to, you know, what actions need to be taken at this point in time. Erin, did you want to?
Well, I mean, I think we had a raft of reasons last time, and I think they vary from person to person. I don't think we really need to rehash the whys or the motivations. I mean, I think, do we, as a committee, do we need to have a vote on this and make it, you know, clear that the majority of us would like this to happen, or is there something else we need to do?
So when you say this, you would like just an OSEC work plan that represents what you do with none of the staff support or implementation.
Okay, so maybe we do need to talk about it more. I'm fine with the plan as written. It's, for me, it's a title issue, because it's supposed to be representing the work we do and the work that comes out of that. Does anybody else feel differently?
I agree with you, Barbara. Was my issue, that it should say the open space and ecology work plan. The sustainability part of it should be a subsection.
I mean,
It is the open space and ecology committee, and it's our work plan, and that's how I feel. And
we
that's
work
why
with
I
staff.
insisted that we discuss this and at the committee level.
Okay.
So on the other committee that I staff, we don't necessarily even list the staff work. It's sort of a informational thing to council. This is what, and some of it with traffic has implications and different liability concerns, and you know, we have licenses that the city protects when we make traffic decisions, like people's lives. So it's a little bit different, but there is a sort of a different, there's a review in both cases by council of what we're going to work on in that next year. And that's what this started from. You know, I mean, you guys know that I've staffed, many of you know that I've staffed the committee for what, 7 years, and we didn't bring the work plan to council 7 years ago. They just were either tuned in or were pleased with what we brought forward. But in the past few years, we've been asked to talk about, in some cases, talk about accomplishments. I guess that went further back. And then to bring a work plan that council can take a look at. And in the case of complete streets, you know, there, or maybe even both, like, what is it that you can do in a year? What is going to be the priority? There's, instead of it, I mean, maybe the perspective of council has changed from everything is open for you to put whatever input into you want, to what are you going to work on this year and what do you hope to accomplish, and let us give you our input about what we think a priority is and we would like to see you do. So it sounds like it's your policy recommendations that are what the work plan that the council is looking at ought to be. We thought that, you know, we're doing a report of accomplishments. That's the place where we can put the staff part about how things are implemented. That makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just confused by what you just said, Karen. I'm completely just dumbfounded because I don't think anybody has any problem with you putting staff contributions in there. Am I incorrect? Like I see some heads shaking no.
Well, that's why we changed the name of it. It made more sense that it's somebody's. If it's a committee did this and staff did this, it's not the OSEC work plan if it includes the part that we're doing. And then, you know, if that is what you guys want to see on the work plan that council's reviewing, what you guys are going to look at that year, what the plan is for what you're gonna look at that year, that's fine, but I guess we want to know, do you think our resources are best spent going back and correcting a word on something that the council approved unanimously? So it would mean writing a staff report, reviewing it, getting it signed, putting it on the agenda. And
Well, I mean, I think all of this could have been give me if I'm mistaken, but I think this wasn't shown to us before it went to council. Did I miss
That's not true. We had a discussion with council liaisons about the document, which was shared with you ahead of time with
Was
the
it
title
titled,
that
though?
went to council.
Was it titled? I don't remember it saying, okay.
It was.
I overlooked that then. I apologize.
but I'm asking, what is so hard about the title? Why is that such a pain point?
Let's let somebody, Mary's had her hand up for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I thought all of us at the last meeting, we all had into this. And based on my understanding, the work plan has always been submitted as the Open Space and Ecology Committee work plan, right? So why did it get changed to sustainability? We do much more than that. And I think the request is simply just changing it back to Open Space and Ecology Committee. Bottom line, that is it. That's all I'm asking for. So I don't understand what the big deal in changing that. And we're spending a lot of time on this for something very simple. And I thought we all agreed to that last meeting. So I don't understand why all this justification is coming forth. We're not challenging that. We're just challenging the name of the work plan. That's it.
Okay, I will follow up that Michelle asked that we act to council to redo what had already been adopted. And
That
we felt needed.
is
Yes.
not what I asked, Karen. I asked that we change the name of the plan to Open Space and Ecology Plan. And I asked that we add the part in the invasive species ordinance that I brought up in the meeting prior to, that it wasn't just the interface properties that we were asking for the invasive species ordinance on. And that is what I asked for. No, I didn't ask to have sustainability taken out of it or any of that. All I asked for is the name change. It's the Open Space and Ecology Committee work plan. And that we add the part back in that didn't get corrected properly, even though it was reflected in the minutes that I did say that. And the night we looked at that, where it says sustainability work plan, I had thought that I had asked for it to be Open Space and Ecology work plan. But frankly, I didn't sit and go through the entire meeting and listen for that. Okay, because it really, I can do that if you want, but I probably didn't ask because I was so focused on the other part. But it should be I mean, you don't call the complete streets the public works plan, do you? No.
We also don't include staff items in it.
Well, you've worked integrally with the committee, but if you want to take your things out of it, I don't know. I mean, it's the Open Space and Ecology work plan. That's what it is. So yeah, I am kind of insistent on it. It's not the sustainability work plan. It is the Open Space and Ecology work plan. Sustainability is a portion of that plan. And whether you want to include the work that you do as our staff liaison and support, Adrian, I love you. I love the work you do. I love the work that Karen does, the work that Bob did. It's not about that at all. We are the Open Space and Ecology Plan. That should be the title of our work plan. It's as simple as that. And that is all I'm asking. So I don't have anything else to say. There's lots of.
And I think that's fine. I take exception to it's always gone to council because it's only gone to council for a couple of years, and the committee has evolved from having the report of accomplishments has gone to council year upon year. Not a work plan. The records are there on the website. And the staff support has changed from someone that's staffed and been the lead staff that gives X% of their time that it's devoted to other projects on it, and having an intern supporting to now having a full-time sustainability manager on staff. So it seemed like a natural progression to put more of that work in there, but it doesn't have to be on your work plan. Maybe it doesn't make sense to be in there. So if you just want to change, and I believe I heard that you wanted us to go back to council. So if that is not a concern, that's great, because we don't think that's a great use of time. We can call it the OSAC work plan going forward, no problem.
Would like this year's plan corrected and sent to council as a correction, but you don't need to go in front of them as far as I'm concerned. That's it.
Seconded.
And Aaron's waiting to talk.
Yes, Aaron.
I don't know if we're able to do that, but we can check.
I think having the breadth of the invasive species ordinance changed is probably enough to bring this to council. So in that case, I don't understand the back history. I'll admit that I would agree that the name change for this particular document for 1 year is probably not the best use of everyone's time. But I do think getting that invasive species spread fixed is, and in that case, I say, since it's already going back, we should fix it and make it right. So that's kind of where I stand on it.
Well, I don't see the language as it was in there as being an impediment to doing, or committee recommending what they want to recommend. So.
You know, we just had a big conversation about how the committee is supposed to set direction agenda and then staff is supposed to figure out how to make it happen. That was a big part of our conversation earlier with the budget and stuff. So I feel like this committee has set a direction. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we can check about whether we can forward correction and it can just be sent from the city manager to the council, and whether it needs to be publicly, available to the public for review or not, or whether it can just be a memo. So we'll check. I don't know. I'm not.
Do I need to make a motion?
I think that would be wise.
Does anyone else want to say anything before I make a motion? Okay. I move that we correct the name of the work plan to the Open Space and Ecology work plan, and that we correct the omission in the proposed invasive species ordinance that includes all of Brisbane and not just the acres.
Second,
Third.
You have to take a roll call.
Shauna, do you want to call for the vote?
Okay, calling for a vote. Aaron,
Aye.
Barbara Evil,
Aye.
on the Calmes. I'm actually going to abstain. I don't think I'm. Mary Rogers,
Aye.
Michelle Salmon.
Aye.
you skipped me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Glenn Feldman.
Aye.
Motion carries. So does that conclude our old business? Oh, here we go for some staff update.
Are you on, Randy?
Can I comment before you move on, please?
Yep.
So just so we're very clear about how we're going to move forward, I think what I would expect Karen to do is to revise the work plan in conformance with the motion that you just made and bring it to you at your next meeting. So we don't have any question or disconnect between what it is we're bringing forward. And at the same time, as you are preparing for your next meeting, we'll consult with the city manager's office and see how it moves forward. If he thinks he can do it without it being agendized, if he wants to discuss with the mayor, if she wants to agendize it, if he wants to go to your liaisons. I don't know what the answer will be, but we will do our very best to get that to you before the next meeting. Is that going to satisfy the committee? I see a lot of heads nodding down. Okay, I just don't want us to have a disconnect again, right? If we are going to go back, let's go back and be the final go back. So we're all in agreement and we're all happy. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Staff updates?
Karen, I think I put your slide before mine, so I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Throw it up there. That's my main one.
Okay.
When we met with the liaisons, and we do have a tree committee meeting coming up that we'll talk about. We had talked about trees, and we talked about the list that the subcommittee had generated with regard to trees that hadn't been replanted. And Randy offered that staff would find out about public works trees and get back to you directly at this meeting. That was my understanding, so I wanted to do this update at this meeting. And this was the list of public trees that were identified. And we take from this that, yes, there are a few trees that maybe they haven't been for different reasons. Some of them can't be planted in the same place or some of them have delays, but there are a few there that maybe were getting lost in the shuffle. And this was a good reminder that some of these trees need to be replaced. So I had the buildings and grounds maintenance team leader give me a list of the status of each of these trees. And this is what's on this slide for you guys. One of them is what he calls Sign Island, which is Mariposa and San Francisco. And I put awaiting committee input because we talked with the tree subcommittee and there were some recommendations that were going to come out of that. I haven't gotten those. I don't want to point any fingers, but I think there was, you guys said you had a couple of trees that would fit. We talked about a valley oak, there are overhead lines. So we talked about what trees that wouldn't grow into the overhead lines and need to be cut in an unsightly way. So there were some ideas for that. And some of these can be replaced on site. Some of them are going to need attention. So we're going to work through getting those trees planted. And again, thank you for the prompt to make sure that we do track to those and get them done.
So, there were more trees than this on that list. Like I remember there's the one on San Bruno just above Alvarado that got taken out because it had little like seed berries that were causing some possible trip hazards, and like that one's not on this list. That one-
I
yeah.
thought this was the list that you guys made. Was that a street tree or was it replaced?
It was a street tree and it has not been replaced. And I'm sure that was on the list because I walk by that one every day.
So I can send this to you because my understanding was you worked off the list that was, you drafted it and then Mary put it into an Excel spreadsheet back.
Yeah.
from
All
that
right.
committee.
We'll go back to it and we'll compare the two.
Karen, can you send us this list in email so that we can review it before our upcoming tree committee meeting?
Yeah, just
That'd be great.
the tree committee wants to see it.
It'd be great to send it to everybody, but as part of the tree committee, I would definitely like to see it. And also the original list side by side. I mean, you don't have to do it side by side. I can look, but it'd be great to see that. And then you're also going to send any notes that we had from our last two tree meetings.
Okay, and
Our last couple tree meetings.
And there were other trees on the list that were private and subject to the ordinance. So I have asked planning to report back on those. I don't have that right now.
That'd be really good to have that too before the tree meeting if we can. If we can't, then we'll add it in after. Thank you so much.
That's that, Adrian. I'm passing to you.
Is that all? Okay. So I'm going to leave this up for a minute because I have a couple items that don't have slides. So the first is that the building efficiency programs reporting link for 2021 data has been posted, and the majority of the notification letters have been sent out. We are trying to see if we can find some additional contact information for some of the buildings that were non-responsive last year, just to check if we might have any other better way to get a hold of them. The disposable foodware amendment passed a second reading on March 17th, last Thursday. And so that will now go into effect in October. last week, March 11th, a couple weeks ago, I guess it's been, compost was delivered for the community garden. And we are planning I do have a slide on this. The public compost giveaway, the compost will be delivered by Scavenger on April 8th at the same location we've had it in the last couple of years. So we did this second giveaway specifically for the garden on their request. And this is something Scavenger has committed to give us a certain amount of compost per year to help with our SB 1383 compliance. So both of these giveaways contribute towards that city procurement requirement under that law. And then this graphic will be, it may have already been in the email blast last week, I think, and it will be in the STAR as well. And then Caroline mentioned to me today, Caroline Chung, our communications manager, is managing the e-ink signboards now. And she noted that they had sent a press release in the last few weeks or so, I think it was, announcing that they were the world's first display technology to receive dark sky certification from the International Dark Sky Association. So I thought that would be something you would all be interested in hearing about. And then my last thing is actually a repeat from last time, just a quick reminder that applications for the Peninsula Clean Energy Citizen Advisory Committee are due March 31st for anyone that may be interested in that. And I do have a few other things that I'm going to save for our subcommittee report.
One more thing, I just remembered that Randy sent you guys an email about Sierra Point, Parkway, Marina Boulevard, I'm sorry, at Sierra Point and the trees. So this would be a reasonable time if there are questions or discussion about that, as it was a staff update that was sent.
I have questions. I did look at that, and I have also looked at the trees and looked at the area. And I have several questions, actually. Is this really, let me just ask. This project has been in the works for 4 years, and I'm curious why there was all of a sudden an emergency and all of this came up very quickly. Many of the trees that will be taken out were probably at the end of their life and should be taken out. And certainly the Monterey pines were really sad looking. But I'm also concerned, I'm just going to tell you all my questions at once, Randy, so you can answer them all at once. I'm also very concerned about the cap, and trees going in is a little different than trees coming out. And I'm worried about that. And then I'm also worried about, will there be more tree removal? And then are we going to meet with a arborist who's familiar with what can be planted on capped landfill for options for replacement? And I think the biggest question is, how did this happen without us realizing in advance that this was going to be necessary? Because this project has been in the works for a long time, and to have it come up as a fire drill was very disconcerting. Those
Oh,
are
it's
my
in your questions? Okay, I didn't know if you were just catching a breath. I was gonna let you answer your questions. So I don't know that I would describe it as a fire drill. I think it was just an odd set of circumstances. The utility quarters that were established out there were established off a water and sewer master plan that was done either in the late 70s or the early 80s. And I don't think that utility plan ever considered that trees were going to be planted whose roots were going to be, we weren't going to have enough barriers placed in there to stop those roots from migrating out into the roadway. And I just don't think that anybody who looked at the project, because the installation of that water line was just a mitigation that was tied to the original developer's requirements to make that connection. And nobody looked at it until the contractor who was doing the install for the water line went out there and laid it out. And then he said, do you realize we're going to go through and kill all these roots? So that's when the conversation started. That probably started the end of last year, early January, it probably began in more earnest. We realized that was my direction at the time to the developer, was get an arborist on board and tell me how we can save these trees. That was my first direction. Put up a type 3 tree protection zone, see what we can do. And as the arborist looked at it, and we went back and forth a couple of times with field meetings and discussions, are like, can't be done. We're going to kill these trees. And so then we looked, well, we have another utility. We didn't. The other corridors are already filled up with existing utilities. We need to install this water on it. I agree with you that some of the trees are in pretty rough shape. I don't think any of the trees were rated in the original report that she prepared as better than even being, moderate current value. I think the techniques such that we put in were not sufficient to keep the trees where they need to be. It is always tricky, and Michelle, because not only did we engage the arborists in that, but we also engaged local enforcement agency, San Mateo County Environmental Health, Regional Water Quality Control Board, because they're the experts on the landfill in two different areas. The regional board is the expert in ensuring that water is not migrating down through the cap. San Mateo County Environmental Health is the expert, really. They're out there for environmental health purposes. They're trying to make sure that methane gas isn't migrating up. So they both had concerns about tree roots, but for very different reasons, right? One is trying to stop something from going down, and one is trying to stop something from migrating up. So they both had an input on the design. And that's why if you look at the details, and I know there's a lot of information in there, look at the plans, there is a root barrier both below and on the side of the tree this time to make sure that we keep the tree roots where they need to be. I also am concerned about the clay cap. That's why one of the things that I asked, that I insisted the development team put in, is that there is a clay cap repair detail that is in there in the event they do cap or they do damage the clay cap. That has also been approved by the regional board and by San Mateo Environmental Health. I could see that tree removal, root removal, that's both going to happen. They're all going to be completely pulled out. I actually think that it's an advantage there in this particular case, because if we've already got tree roots that we know are going in the wrong direction, I think we already have the potential for penetrating that cap. I think catching it now, fixing it now, and putting appropriate trees in an appropriate fashion is just going to be better for the environment overall. The developer is required to establish, they're completely paying for the removal and replacement. They're completely paying for the replanting, the ground cover, and we've engaged them in a long-term maintenance contract to ensure the trees and the shore protected. So it's not causing harm to the city. I mean, other than the harm, that we all feel a little bit when we pluck 44 trees out. Start over.
Yeah.
So other people have their hands up. I don't know.
Well, let me just comment on that, Randy, and then other people, because I consider this somewhat of a dress rehearsal for what's going to happen in the Baylands. And so my concern really was that we did not know in advance that this was happening, even though this has been planned for a long time. And there will be other developments at Sierra Point, and there will be developments on the Baylands. So I just think that we should really study how this happened and make sure that it doesn't happen this way again, that we know in advance and plan in advance, and that we're more prepared. And you are the master of preparedness. And so I was just taken aback. And then the part that you didn't answer was the decision about replacement plantings, replacement trees, and what we're going to do about that, because they do need to be replaced. It's very stark out there without that.
So what was the specific question, Michelle? I'm sorry.
What are we going to plant, and how are we going to decide that?
Yeah.
And what help will we get deciding that?
If you look, well, I thought I said that the arborist and the regional board and San Mateo County Environmental Health all looked at it, because they have their very specific comments about trees and how deep certain trees go. But
Yeah.
if you go through that information I sent you, there's a landscape set of plans. Sheet L 2.0 is the one that specifies the trees. It specifies the size of trees. It specifies all the ground.
Okay, will we have any say in that? I haven't actually read into that detail.
We are a long way away from having the trees replaced. So if you've got suggestions,
Okay.
I think I can negotiate it. Yeah, happy to have that conversation with you. I think if you look at it right now, you're going to see that we've got a pretty good diversity out there. That's one of the things that always concerns me, is that a lot of times, and I'm not going to say I've seen you folks do it, but if you look in town, you've seen like the trees we have in visitation all are 100% the same. If you look at what we used to have, and more concerning out at Sierra Point, was we had the myopteros that were all out there. That were
They were shrubs. pruned to be trees and they were just
Shrubs,
horrible,
trees.
horrible.
But the
Horrible.
problem with that lack of biodiversity is that we had one bug came in. We had the
And they
fruits
all got
come in
sick.
and killed 100% of them. So, you know, I am a big fan of having diversity of species. That way, if one thing that kills one type of tree comes in, doesn't kill them all at once, and you can have trees that age differently, and you go through a natural pruning and removal cycle, and still keep some beauty and still keep some canopy, and still keep all the good things that happen to trees without just ripping everything out and looking like Sherman just marched to Atlanta and raised the ground.
My opera are not trees. They were shrubs. They were shrubbery that grew up and got pruned to be trees. They should have
Are
never
you
been.
missing my analogy?
No, I
With the
get
lack
it.
of diversity? Okay, all right, okay.
I totally get it.
Yeah, that's my
Okay.
point. Okay, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't
Thank you,
disagree on
Brandon.
my opera. Yeah.
No, we don't disagree on that at all.
I see others on chair. I'll let you decide how you let people go. It's
Shauna, we're next.
Thanks. My question for you, Randy, is you were talking about the root barriers that are going to be installed.
Yep.
And I had some questions about what kind of root barriers. I'll give you an example of what I was concerned about. Is there was a rather large tree that fell over, I believe, in December in front of the post office. And when you look at that root ball, what you see is this plastic thing with the bottom off, and it's like, well, no wonder this tree fell because all of its anchoring roots were just unable to do its things. And that is, if all those other trees are going to be planted like that, you're going to have a massive tree failure again. That's just foolish.
yeah. See, so that's a good question, and we did address that with the arborist because there's two things you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's more than that. There's probably a multitude of things, but I think the two things that are most important to the question you're asking is, number one, where are you putting the root barrier and where are you putting it relative to the tree? Because we're trying to protect that clay lens, but we're also, and I specifically asked the arborist to confirm that the volume of soil that we've got above the root barrier is adequate for that species of tree to both take hold and to live. And so they had, when I asked that question, like, oh, we got to go back and rethink. So they did go back and they did some recalculation. And if you look at the way these trees are planted with a little bit of elevation to them so that they created that additional soil volume so the tree can settle itself in. And so it can also, within the area it's in, decide that this is enough nutrient for me. I don't need to be fighting against the root trying.
Okay. Yeah, every time I see that like balled over root ball, it makes me just very unhappy.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting. I didn't know which tree you were going to talk about, Shannon, because I mean, really one of the worst ones I've ever seen, and it didn't have anything to do with root barriers. We had a giant pine tree up there on Valley, but it had been planted in an area with turf. And because that turf was getting watered all the time, the roots were probably about this deep. And this tree had to be a 60-foot tree that had a diameter that was in excess of 4 or 5 feet. So I live a mile away from where this tree is, and it fell one night at 9 p.m. It shook my house. I was like, oh my God, what happened there? And I went out and looked at it. I looked at the roots and how they had not taken to that environment. I was terrified. Like, what are we doing out here? We're going to stop putting trees in grass, you know? So anyway, thank you for letting me go off on that. Hi, Aaron. I see your hand still up, but you're on mute.
Yeah, so I went back and read your email, and I will admit I have not read the 30-page attachment. But I did notice that you said 37 of the 44 trees were going to get replaced.
Correct.
And I'm kind of worried about the death by 1,000 cuts. So are we going to just lose those 7 trees forever?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the reason we're losing those 7 trees is that the alignment as it comes down the side of the road and then it crosses under the median. And where it crosses the median, the 7 trees that are going to be right on top of this new water line are the ones that we're not replacing.
And that developer that's doing that work doesn't own land around there that 7 trees could be added to?
Yes, no, maybe. I think they've already got they own land, but they've already got a pretty robust tree planting plan and xeriscape plan on the properties they already own. So and I didn't have another place to put them at Sierra Point. Just, Sierra Point is problematic because there's so much of it out there that's private. But yes, you caught the discrepancy. It's a discrepancy of 7.
Yeah, I just want to say, let's, you know, even if there, other trees, if, okay, let me, I have a thought, but I need to make it into words. So I know when trees are replanted as part of a project because of our tree ordinance, they become protected. So maybe we can designate 7 other trees that are already planned within the project as replacement trees so that they then become protected and require replacement if they're taken out. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask the planning department how they do that.
Okay.
And I will see if it makes sense. Let me check with their tree guy, see how that works.
And I have a different idea about that. And maybe in lieu of those 7 trees, phase 3 or the developer could participate in a more restoration of the marsh that aligns their property. I think that might be of high habitat value, and you know, maybe not replanting those 7 trees and using that funding to help rehabilitate the marsh right there along the Bay Trail in their property might be a better. We can use this as an opportunity to do something new and good for that marsh area that is really degraded from us doing landfill at Sierra Point.
Well, you know, let me do this. Let me go back. I'm sorry, Michelle. I cut you off.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so let me do this. Let me, you know, phase 3.
They're good guys.
Yeah, you know, for developers, they're pretty darn good
Yeah,
guys.
they are.
So let me just go back to them and say, hey, you know, we didn't think about this at the time. We are kind of short of 7 trees. Can we figure out something to do that? Or can we just look at, I know what the cost is for you to replace those. Maybe can you flip that to us so we can use it? Maybe put it, you know, hell, maybe tell us, we'll put it in a directed fund. Maybe we'll put it in the open space and ecology activity counts or something. And then
I think the marsh really would benefit the area
yeah,
and benefit their development.
I'm
and
just saying
benefit
that way I would let
everything.
all of you. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that would let all of you decide instead of we don't have
Yeah.
to decide it right now. If I can just get a check, then it gives you guys something to put your collective thoughts into.
Yeah, although my experience with them when they built the towers, because Mountain Watch was involved with that,
Right.
was that they were very environmentally forward about doing even more than what they were obligated to do because they were invested in the project.
Okay.
So I would, you know, I'm happy to meet with you and them together. I know Mike pretty well.
Let me ask him.
Okay.
There's no harm in me asking.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Yeah, okay, sure. Happy to
Thank
do it.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else, folks?
Barbara's got her hand up.
Oh, no, I think I already said it. Let me take it down.
Okay.
Randy, thank you so much for sending us that information so promptly and, you know, tamping down the angst over losing those trees. It was greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Your responsiveness once it came to the, once it was daylighted as an issue.
Yeah,
I
well,
appreciate
I'm
that.
going to keep trying to do that. I mean, it's obvious from, you know, our previous meetings that you folks have the same level of concern that I do, that most of my staff do, about our urban canopy. So I just want to share stuff with you so you know what's going on.
Yeah.
You get that there's, and I appreciated all those questions you had. They're good questions, and I hope you get a sense of that. Yeah, staff's actually thinking about those kind of things too, and you know, we really are, you know, trying to do our best job possible. So thanks.
I know.
Yes, I appreciate you too as well, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you for your concern about the urban canopy. It's really quite nice.
All right, I'm gonna go back to letting you guys see my puppy then. my little troublemaker.
I'll be right back.
Yes, we're at subcommittees now.
Yeah, so I did want to note that we are covering both subcommittee reports and reorganization. So I'm not sure if you want to go line by line through and do reports and then do reorganization all at the end, or discuss them, the subcommittee members as we go. I kind of would leave that up to you guys to determine how you want to work through this list.
I'm wondering whether, since Jason isn't here, and there might be some other committees that he wants to be on. I don't know, Barbara. Madam Chairwoman, what do you have to say about that? Whether is reorganization the best thing to be doing right now, or not everybody's here?
Unless, well, I mean, we kind of, I think I would like to leave the final decision up to Erin, because she would be the one that would be sort of losing out as a result of I'd like to put it off to next month, but I don't want to do that without consulting her, because she's the one that's losing out. She would be the one who would be gaining opportunities this evening, so.
I guess my recommendation would be that we not remove Jason from any subcommittees, and that we could do this effort now with the members who are here, because we don't know if, somebody might have to miss next month, and we just kind of get stuck in this cycle of waiting for a meeting that everyone's at. So I would recommend we go ahead with it, and we can bring it back on the agenda next month to confirm. And I would just say the subcommittees that Jason is on, leave him on. And if there are changes that he wants to request next month, then we can see how that needs to shake out. That sound okay to folks?
I'd like to hear from Erin.
I thought about this a little bit and decided that I'm just going to be agreeable. So you could just add me to every committee that only has 2 members, and then I can be flexible next month. So maybe we should do that and see. That said, I don't know if anyone else wants to do a reorg. So I think I'm flexible. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, though.
Yeah, if Erin's flexible, I'm flexible.
I think you would be a great addition to the climate action plan, Erin, because that was, you're brilliant. I think it would be a really great addition to that group. And that's the spot that was left empty by Ross. Of course, I would love to have you on the open space plan update. You may run into the same issues that Jason did when we're discussing acres that are close to where you live, but there's a whole lot more I hope that we do on the open space plan update going forward, not just in the acres, but across the entire plan. I'm hoping Dark Skies is wrapped up and there's nothing more to do other than getting it passed.
Yeah, I heard.
Run through them in order, maybe?
Sure, let's go ahead and do that. So climate action plan. I don't know if Glenn or Barbara wants to provide an update from our meeting a couple of weeks ago. That's more in depth, but we met and we're meeting again next week, working through some of the forecasting that was provided by the RICAP consultant. Glenn, you're muted. Looks like you were saying something.
I was just going to say, I don't think there's a whole lot to add to that. We're kind of a little bit on hold right now, except for that.
But Erin, we would love to have you join that subcommittee. We do have some work in progress, so I can catch you up between, over the next week. And if you're able to join us, I think we're planning on next Wednesday at 6, if I'm not mistaken, for that subcommittee meeting. So, I can follow up with you tomorrow and provide some of that kind of background and hopefully get you up to speed for that meeting if you're able to join it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to do 6:15, but yeah, next Wednesday.
That works.
Next one is events. Oh, I've got our events subcommittee update. And yes, Bob was able to do this flyer for us. I don't know that there's a whole lot more to say on event subcommittee unless someone on the committee currently is interested in opening a spot up.
I could open a spot up there. I would still help with, liaison and show up and stuff like that. But I'm happy to open a spot there. So, but think about it, it's just like the big things are the habitat days and the day in the park. So,
So
onward
you're
and-
offering the opening and maybe if we need to revisit next month.
Jason might want to give up his spot there too. I don't know. It's pretty hard. And Mary's saying something and she's on mute. She's
I've
probably
been on
saying,
it. I've been on it since I started, so this would be year 5. So I
Hey,
was hoping
Mary.
to.
I've been on it since I started and this is
I
year
know.
11. So
Okay.
give me a break.
Right. Okay.
Wow, it sounds
Right.
like that whole committee needs to turn over.
Yeah.
Turn
And
over
it
in our
also
graves.
sounds like that committee might need more people on it than 3.
It does, but we're only allowed to have 3 because of the Brown Act, which is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, I mean, not ridiculous that there's a Brown Act, but it's not a it's a, never mind. All help
But
is welcome.
everybody usually volunteers when
And
it comes
pitches
down
in
to,
yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
mad rush. Everybody jumps in and we make it happen.
Maybe I'd like to propose that that committee doesn't just turn over all at once, because that's a lot of knowledge that gets lost too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Education and outreach.
I have an update for this one as well. Sorry, I'm gonna have to jump back and forth on the slides a little bit. If
I saw that.
If this properly, did anybody see this on social media today?
I did. I did.
Wow.
Yeah. It looked great.
So let's see if this video is gonna work. I tried to embed it in the slides here. Caroline and I went up to finish setting this up, and Caroline, little video. Can you guys see for the audio?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Mm.
Oh, it looks good.
Oh, this is great.
Yay.
Very nice.
Looks
Very
great.
Yay.
Very nice.
So that is finally up, and again, we did have Bob finish up the posters as one of his last projects for us, and he we've got, I think, about 3 months we had planned for this display, and then we will plan to trade it out for one of the others on a first year's roster in a few months. And the cart that you can see there in the end of the video, they actually had already started to collect some of the other items that we had picked from the library catalog for some of those other displays, and noted that some items are easier and faster to get than others. So there were some of the items that we had picked for this month that they didn't have on hand, but may still come in and be added. Fun.
Is there going to be a way that we can add books to that list? Because new stuff is being published all the time. Is there? So we chose books for all of the displays at one time.
I think what I would recommend is that if you have something, we can certainly just send it to me, and I can get that to library staff. I'm imagining that when it's time to update the display for the next quarter, we'll be in touch with them to talk about when they, when we'll want to do that conversion. And, at that point in time would be a good time to say, hey, we've picked some additional material. As much lead time as we can give them, it sounds like would be beneficial. Obviously, if they're getting something from a different library in San Mateo County, that takes some time. If somebody has a book checked out that's on our list, those
Sure.
kind of things. So when we can give them some lead time, I think it definitely helps. I think they had this list for over a month before we actually got
Yeah.
this layout this afternoon.
Okay. But it's not set in stone.
No, not at all. And I mean, even it was a little sparse at first with what they had on their cart. And one of the librarians went over to the kids section and found a couple other books on
Oh,
stars
good.
and astronomy and stuff that maybe weren't on our list. So they were still, pulling stuff out of the other shelves as we were setting up this afternoon. So
Oh,
we
good.
have that ability, and the librarians are good at their job.
Great. Well, I'm glad they're excited enough about it to want to contribute. That's fabulous.
Yeah, and if you can't tell, this is literally the first thing when you walk in the front door of the library. So very prominent.
Great.
Back up a couple slides to the list again. So that was all I had on this. I'm not sure if there's any interest in shuffling any members of.
I'm happy to stay on.
I'm good.
The aliens, there has not been a meeting, and I think my understanding, but perhaps Karen or Randy can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the OSEC representation on this committee was an appointment by city council. So I'm not sure that this one is necessarily up for debate. Open space plan update.
That's at this point, that's waiting for me to get it on the council agenda and get that addition of 6 acres approved. And then I think we talk about, I mean, that was the original goal when the committee was formed. It sounds like a couple members have some other ideas, so we should probably, reconstitute after that and talk about what next we would want to work on relative to the open space plan. I was under the impression or understanding that it was ad hoc for that purpose. So talk some more about the next goals.
Karen, when we started that, we didn't have a separation between subcommittees, standing subcommittees and ad hoc subcommittees. And I had wanted from the very time I first joined the Open Space and Ecology Committee to update the open space plan. Remember when we used our yellow markers to mark up priority conservation areas? That was all part of the same idea of wanting to update our open space plan. So maybe it's time we thought about moving it from an ad hoc to a standing subcommittee.
If you want to look beyond the acres and what we did there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I also think we need another person.
Yes, we do.
If we're going to update I think it warrants another committee member.
Is it okay to come back to that when we get the acres thing finished so that it's, if anybody
Yeah.
is in the zone?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
And speaking of which, when is that going to go to council?
It'll be one of the 2 meetings in April. Oh, that's on me that I didn't get it into the mark.
Okay, please let me know, because I definitely want to, I'd like to speak on that
Mhm.
and co-present or whatever it takes to, and I think Mary would too, because we've put a lot of work into it and we really feel it is very important.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Mary, you want to give an update on frog habitat?
Crocker Trail frog habitat. So Shauna, Michelle, and I met last week, and we started pulling data together for a draft presentation. We're going to be meeting hopefully Friday. I know Shauna confirmed, and Michelle, I think, is still.
I'm confirming now. Yeah.
Okay,
good.
thank you. And we're going to start hopefully we'll have it finished by early April. So for the committee to take a look at and provide comments, and then incorporate those comments, and then hopefully hand it off to Karen for finalization.
And one of those may include, some budgeting issues.
Yeah, I think there's good reason to have some expertise behind the reasoning behind the maintenance of the frog habitat. So
Yeah.
we'll need some expertise there, and that's
Yeah.
going to cost.
And maybe some maintenance work over the next year or two as
Yeah.
well, which we had talked with originally with Clay about, that he may have some
Yeah,
ability to help us with that,
yeah.
the city.
Do you want to discuss it with staff before you bring it to the full committee? And there was also the issue.
Oh,
of-
yeah, we'll do that. We'll just, I'll set up, once we're done, I'll set up a subcommittee meeting with the four of us, including you, Karen, yeah. And we'll go through it.
Sorry, not trying to interrupt you. There was the
No, that's fine.
time that sends out their weed abatement notices. I was asked by the city manager, what was your time? And I think I emailed you guys, what was your time frame? Because we don't want those notices to go out in a vacuum, and then that property owner feels like they need to put everything down if you're gonna
Right.
proposal to maintain some. And I think they, blanking out, they maybe send them out in April. So I will double check on that.
Yeah.
Coordinate.
If we could hold off on that by any chance.
I know there's really nothing for them to cut down. They
Yeah.
already did. It's all like,
Yeah.
Oh, it's all,
we've been out there. This will actually be our third meeting on Friday.
Yeah.
It's short out there and it's chock full of tadpoles and it would be
Yeah, so
just-
just
Yeah.
hands off
Yeah.
right now. Don't even go
Yeah.
near it.
Yeah.
Stay away from the baby frogs.
Yeah.
Stay away from the baby
Yeah.
frogs.
We need to leave it alone for a while.
Our own councilman Cliff Lentz was out there scooping up tadpoles out of drying pools and putting them there. So you don't want to mess with it right now.
Yeah. But it's moving along.
Yeah.
nobody wants to leave to make room for any.
We're just getting
I
started.
mean, we just
so no.
started, yeah.
Yeah.
Applied. Beginning of May, they send out their citywide letter in the beginning of May.
Okay.
So it would be good to have something rough up for then, so that we can.
Okay, got it.
I think
Okay.
by the end of today, by the end of our Friday meeting, we should have something that we can give
Yeah.
you, share with you, Karen, so we can sort of get this ball rolling. We just didn't want to
Just,
give.
assuming we have flexibility in when those notices go out.
I
You're
know.
saying it-
Well, I don't know that there is, because their staff a certain way to finish by fiscal year, and then they assign someone to come in and clean up certain sites. But I think that if we know we have a certain ask on that property, we
Yeah.
can know.
Yeah, well, we control that, right? I mean, the city controls that. We
Yes.
oversee that, right?
Yeah, for North County
Okay.
Fire, North County Fire
Okay.
manages that.
Okay.
Yeah, so they don't want to put the whole thing off for this one property, but if we ask.
No,
them for
but
this
we
one-
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking flexibility for this site, for the cypress frog habitat site, not everything. Our focus is that.
from
frog
Cypress
habitat.
Lane to the
Yeah.
train tunnel.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we need to see what your ask is, and I need to, we met with the city manager.
Yeah.
Through him,
Okay.
had him direct.
okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Invasive species ordinance, we have not met.
We need to.
We need to.
And we still need to get back information to sort of bring me up to speed where you've been up to this point.
Yeah, I had thought about that. And I did not get that to you. I apologize. And everybody wants to stay on that committee that's on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, unless Aaron's got a burning desire for it, but
I think I was gonna, go ahead, sorry.
Could I have the ability to read the report in a helpful way without being on the committee, because you guys seem to be moving forward? I'm like, I'm super interested. I don't want to knock anybody off that committee though, right?
I get
And
it.
it seems like I remember this was one of the first meetings I ever watched, was the invasive species, the, you know, what had happened up to then. And I was just like, oh man, this committee's awesome. So
And then we fell on our faces and haven't done anything since. And part of that's on me, you know. I think my plate's pretty full.
hearing to be helpful in a way that doesn't violate the Brown Act. If I can't be on that committee, I still would like to be helpful.
So you might have been thinking about when our consultant presented the vegetation management plan in the acres and what they accomplished in the year, maybe, because those are pretty, you know, pretty cool
No,
presentations that they do.
Yeah, no, actually, I remember, I think Glenn did a lot of the presenting when you guys talked about it. It was late summer 2020. But yes, I also, that vegetation land management presentation was also awesome.
Oh, okay, I can look back at that. So, you know, the committee has to be sized the way it is. If there's more than you have convened a quorum of the full committee, and you've done that outside of notifying the public that you're going to discuss or make a recommendation. So,
Karen, I have a question. How
What was
hard
it?
is it to notify the committee that we're going to have a subcommittee meeting if we have more than 3?
it's a full committee meeting if you have.
It would have to be a fully noticed, 72 hours ahead, meeting posted, public able to attend by Zoom, MCTV coordinated,
Okay.
all of that.
Just
because it would
asking.
be a full committee meeting.
Okay.
So it's if you're not on that subcommittee, probably your best chance is when the subcommittee asks the full committee to give them feedback and make a recommendation, bring something forward to council. It's hard to kind of be a, you know, leg of the subcommittee without throwing the numbers off. So,
So
I was-
let's think about this for next month.
Just offering to review a document, and I am happy to wait until that document's given to the full committee. So no worries.
Yeah, Aaron,
We
there's
are a
been a
long
lot
way
of
from the
times I wanted
document.
to be helpful and involved, and you just can't because of the Brown Act and stuff. So, yeah.
but the full committee appreciates people that aren't on the subcommittee getting engaged on the topic and offering input. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It should be said, though, that we're quite a long ways from a document.
Mhm.
We really, you know, we've talked about an invasive species ordinance a number of times and really, you know, haven't gotten off the ground with it. So we're still at the getting off the ground stage.
And in terms of talking about big picture policy recommendations, this discussion right now that is listed in invasive species ordinance, you can have those conceptual conversations. You just can't make final decisions about what the ordinance is gonna have.
So I'm looking at this list and my name is all over the place. And so I think I need to make a decision or a choice between or invasive species ordinance or tree issues. You know, or definitely events, you know, because I'll help you anyway and I can show up and help. Yeah, so I think that, Aaron, you need to maybe think about which one you want and maybe the committee thinks about which committee wants her more. Because I don't want to be stingy and I've got a pretty full plate.
Well, what I was gonna say, Aaron, is if for some reason they don't agree to let you be on the open space plan for the same reason that they were unhappy about Jason being on there because you're up too close there, I would be interested in that, and perhaps even though invasive species are something that I'm very interested in, I'd be willing to let you join that committee because it seems to be something you're very interested in as well. You know, just just to give you a little bit of flexibility there and in the let's all play together.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
This seems like a good process where people have suggested places that they'd be willing to change and everybody can think about it until the next meeting.
Yeah. I mean, Erin, I want you to embrace your passion.
That's why I'm here, Michelle. Thank you.
I know. I'm passionate about too many things and I need to let go of something.
So moving to the next one is dark skies.
Oh, hopefully that one will be over soon.
So, I heard that somebody said that somebody thought that it wasn't complete.
So I have an update,
Okay.
and I think maybe what you are thinking, I don't know that I said it wasn't complete. I think Michelle had mentioned earlier the thought that the subcommittee would be ending soon, and I think that's likely not the case. I have received a commented draft ordinance back from the planning staff, and
Okay.
we have a lot of comments that we need to work through. So I was going to share that commented draft with the subcommittee and try to schedule a meeting, but we only have 2 committee members at this point in time. That is one of our openings. So I wanted to see how this reorganization shook out so that I can just work with the 3 members, hopefully, that would be on that subcommittee to go through those planning comments and make sure we got the right 3 people scheduled for a meeting. So that's where we are. And then I would just open it up for conversation about who should continue on that.
Erin, that would be a good one if you want to jump on.
Michelle, you might also be very good at that one because I know you're very passionate about that.
Yeah, but I'm already on it.
Oh, well,
that was a
I'm not saying
subcommittee which Ross had been on. So there is an opening without anyone else stepping down. Michelle and Barbara being the other 2 members who would work with Ross.
And we could use an eagle eye on that, and hopefully we'll have that wrapped soon.
Tough though, because the other ones seem to be up in the air and Erin could end up on 4 or how, a large number.
I'm on 6. It's okay. She can handle it. Till she has to start traveling again.
Oh, I'm in Washington, D.C. right now.
Oh, okay. Oh,
It's late.
Ooh, yeah, very late.
Yeah, I'm gonna be here tomorrow. Yeah, I am happy to put an eagle eye on that one. I'm also happy to let anyone else who might be interested enjoy that one.
I see your is the only hand raised, Erin.
Sounds like
At
it.
this time, I mean, Jason isn't here, but I don't want to wait another month to get that, work and, back in progress. It's been kind of on hold for a number of months. So Erin, if you are interested and willing, I'd like to go ahead and
Acting for a month, send the document.
all right, excellent. We will do so. 3 issues.
We did set a meeting for next Tuesday, and who is the meeting with?
Me.
Everyone's staying. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Okay. And Mary, I'll remember that you're not on that anymore.
That's fine.
And Karen, you have some previous meetings, synopsises or something like that, so I can also get up to speed. Maybe, yes.
Yes. That's from last. Yes. Okay. So I'll send around what the committee draft.
Thank you.
It's running this thing. Science fair.
Do I hear any takers? But I do have some updates. I think I just sent you the email I got from Joe Condon yesterday to Adrian for the, I needed the names of the students because they were presented with just initials. So I just need the certificates. I'll frame them and bring them up to the school so they will get presented. I mean, I have all the contacts now. It's kind of easy. So I'll stay on the committee.
And Mary, I did see your email this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.
apologize.
I
wasn't
just
able to
sent it.
Get
Yeah.
that, jump on
Yeah.
that right away today,
Yeah.
but I'll work on those. And I'm generally in the office on Wednesdays. So if
Okay.
not before then, by completing them and sending them to someone else that is in City Hall to print, I'll have them for you next
Yeah.
Wednesday. But I'll send you an email to give you an
Okay.
update on the timing on that.
Perfect. Thank you. I did, just FYI to the committee, I did try, I think Adrian, I CC'd you on the email, and same with Barbara. I was trying to plug Joe Condon into incorporating climate change projects for the science fair. I asked him to think about it, so I was
Oh,
trying to
good.
plug for that. So thank you. Yeah, I tried to do that. So I didn't get any comments back, but I'll nudge him again because it is important. So
Yeah.
I went ahead and did
Yeah, I
that.
mean, we've been kind of trying to, I mean, that's the whole purpose of, or one of
Yeah.
the purposes of OSAC participating in the science fair is to actively get the kids thinking about climate change and
Yeah.
stuff. So, I mean,
Yeah.
but you know, they have to know.
I'll keep
exactly
pestering him and see, and maybe talk to Bob Debler, because I think he helps Joe coordinate that whole fair. So I'll do that as well. It's worth it. It's worth keeping, yeah, just pestering him. Let's get it in there. So thanks.
Good.
I think that's
I think
all
that's
of
it.
them.
I think that's it.
So do we have a calendar items for moving forward? Going backwards.
Too.
Yay.
So we do have our two events next month, the compost giveaway and Earth Day. We are working towards having that climate emergency draft plan from the CAP subcommittee ready for OSEC discussion next month. And then before that goes to City Council. And we will see a bunch of environmental topics in the April STAR, which is fitting, of course. And we will be working in the next few weeks or so to get started on the recycled arts and crafts contest, launching that with the Park and Rec department again. Are there any questions?
No, except we do need to work to set the Habitat Day. So, and I think we're going to have a good turnout for April.
I would hope so. We usually did for Earth Day, and I think people will be, excited to get back out there this year. So
Oh,
I would
God, yeah.
expect a pretty strong turnout.
Yeah, we had a plant sale on Saturday, and it was the biggest one we've ever had. We're just like overwhelmed, stunned, wonderful. I was shocked. So there's definitely pent up demand to be out there. Okay.
And yes, I know we need a new team photo here. Meanwhile, I'm going to keep recycling this one so we can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, if we have everyone, we could turn off our screens and take a screenshot of the committee like this.
We don't have Jason, and we don't have Oh, we don't have Jason.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little sleepy today.
My
Hey,
hair
can
is
I-
looking very flat.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Just a general question. I was walking along Corey today, and I don't know if anyone else has recently, but it looks like the road starting with the all the way down to the makeshift skate park, there's a lot of orange tags on the ground. I took a picture of one. This is probably a Randy question. And they talk about grading limit, and I don't know, it's orange and there's a tag that's like screwed into the ground. And they go all along that path. I was wondering what was going on back there.
My best guess is somebody's doing the survey and the layout for the proposal that the quarry folks are.
Okay.
Have
Okay.
they put that proposal in yet, Randy?
No, they haven't submitted it yet.
Okay. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. Wanted to
Also,
confirm
PG&E is painting the towers,
that. Mm.
and they had a bunch of vehicles and cones and
Mhm.
stuff out there a few days ago. I was
Yeah.
out there too, so that could be part of what you saw.
Oh, no, PG&E, they're repairing the tower. Apparently there was, because I stopped and asked somebody,
Mm.
and it was PG&E, and there's some rust on some of the towers, so they
Yeah.
were repairing that, and they were reinforcing the towers and painting. So, but those tags on the ground were further up.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and that kind of makes sense that it's in line with prepping for the development proposal of the quarry. But I mean, they
Yeah.
go all along the road. I'm like, oh, let me find out what's up. So thank
Well,
you.
Apparently the proposal, I mean, early days when I looked at it, they're going to regrade Quarry Road, and it's going to be, and then that'll be the inbound and the outbound will be through the Dolby property. And it's going to be a major reconfiguration of Quarry Road with 24/7 hour operations for freight forwarding. That was the original proposal that I had heard, but I haven't seen any formal proposal at all.
I mean, is that would that warrant a subcommittee for OSUC?
I think it would.
But quite possibly an ad hoc one.
Okay, yeah.
I think it would
Okay.
only warrant that if the council subassigns it to you, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
True, it's not on our work plan, so.
And it's typically a planning commission review versus the AR.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It'd be a council discretion.
Okay.
Yeah, it does involve open space,
Open
open
space.
space and habitat. So. Anything else? Hello? Hey.
We're all ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Next meeting is on April 27th, at 6:30. I presume that we're going to stay with this format for the foreseeable future. Adrian?
I have not heard otherwise at this point.
Okay.
So I
So
would
fourth
assume so.
Wednesday of the month.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll have ample warning, I would expect. There's a hybrid or some other type of plan.
Okay.
Or if I guess it's having to do with the state, once Randy, you were saying that we're not in this pandemic modified Brown Act.
Yeah, it's actually more complicated to have some people remote when you're not. Aaron, I just found out, is in Washington, D.C. So, for instance, when I've had to do meetings separately and you're not in a pandemic mode, you have to publicly announce where you're going to be taking the meeting. And you have to have a sign. And the worst part is the public has to be able to join you. So, like if you're in a hotel room, and nobody's ever stalked me when I was on vacation and joined me for a meeting, But if there were people, once we go back to just being under Brown Act, the people say, oh yeah, well, I just want to meet, I want to stay at my house. And if somebody shows up at your house and says, hey, it was publicly noticed that you're going to be meeting here, you have to accommodate. So that's really weird. So, right? Because you can imagine somebody doing that, maybe not with this committee, but with other committees, I can see people doing that out of spite and out of weirdness. So I think when we go back to meeting in person, we're going to be meeting back in person. That would be my recommendation. I'm not going to be taking a meeting at my house, so people can join me.
So we have meetings at work where some people have a video system in their office and some people have to go to a conference room and, you know, and people are at home. I don't see how a hybrid wouldn't work if there was, you know, a bunch of people at City Hall and a Zoom dialing from there.
It's really just a matter of the Brown Act, Aaron. It's a matter of the way the Brown Act requires it. And unfortunately, the Fair Political Practices Commission that manages it is not always consistent with their direction. And in fact, sometimes they're completely 180 out of their direction. So they'll make a decision one year and then flip flop next year. So we'll take the best guidance we can get. That's why we have 2 attorneys on board, so they can figure it out.
Private sector meetings are different than the public meetings of public officials.
Well, Aaron may have some interesting hybrids too. You work for NASA, don't you? So yeah, so.
But we don't have to let the public in our meetings. We just have to, you know.
Yeah, it's just when you're meeting with public officials and such. It
We're
gets
doing all
weird.
the
Yeah.
Right.
We make it all weird when we bring government into it.
Okay.
All right, guys, we good?
Yeah.
All right, my dog is complaining. I'm gonna run home and take him out. And put him in
Hey,
bed.
so I move we adjourn. Is there a second?
I second that.
Yeah. You don't need
Alright.
you don't need a motion for adjournment.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks so much.
Take
Have a great
good
Christmas.
care.
Right.